What are some of the dangers to large builder credits? My name's Evan Kaufman, your loan originator, here to help explain. So some folks recently have been getting these very large builder credits when they're going to purchase a home. So they'll go to a home builder, and the home builder, let's say they're selling the home for $500,000. It's a general range for new builds just around the country as an average. But let's say $500,000 they're selling the home for, and they're offering something ridiculous like a 6-7% builder, or otherwise referred to as sometimes a seller, credit on the home. All of a sudden they're offering like 60 or what, $35,000. We've seen $35,000 and $40,000 on similar price homes for that in builder credits to help buy down interest rates or use however ultimately the buyer wants. Well, what is the danger of that? First, we want to look at why are they offering that generally, and then we'll look at some of the dangers that we have to taking those large credits and what that can mean or potentially impact you in the future. So first, why are builders offering that? I grew up in a family of builders, so understand this relatively well for why builders utilize incentives, especially builder credit incentives, to help make sure they get homes moved. So one of the major reasons is because they're just trying to move inventory in general. So they have a home that might be sitting there for a long time and they just need to get it sold. Like over the last couple years, new builds have been in such demand. Recently, as rates go back up and down, sometimes they've become less in demand and they got to move inventory. Builders have started building a lot of surplus. They need to get them off their books. So they might offer more or less incentives depending on the supply that they have. The other reason they'll offer a lot of credits, and this is where it starts merging into the, hey, where this could be dangerous, is they're trying to make sure they keep the sales price of their homes all relatively balanced. There's one big, issue or conundrum with new build communities, and that's the appraisal process. In the appraisal process, an appraiser looks at reasonable comparable home sales and tries to determine the value of a home. So in new build neighborhoods, and this is again shifting to where it can be dangerous, and we'll put it together for you as a borrower getting these loaner credits. Where it can be dangerous is that when you're looking at a new build neighborhood, the comparables are typically the other new builds right around it. And the appraisers, here's how this one works. They're going to look at those other homes that have sold, and they're going to say, all right, that one sold for $480, that one sold for $520. Yeah, okay, this one at $500, we're in good shape. But if all of a sudden any of those prices start drifting down, the appraisers are going to value those separate. They're going to start valuing them lower and lower. So it's in the interest of builders who are building communities to make sure they keep those appraised values at a good price point. Because remember, in times where their homes are in demand, they can curb back those seller credits. And in times where they need it, they're going to increase those seller credits to try to move inventory. Now, appraisers are supposed to take into account some seller credits or those builder credits, but it's not always perfect. And we get that. It's not a perfect science of things. But the danger can be where all of a sudden, let's say a builder has a neighborhood that they've built out a lot of homes, and they've all been selling for that same price point, $500,000. These original homes were sold for $500,000 with no builder credits. The market's gotten a little bit tougher. It's been harder to sell homes for some reason. There's less demand for them. All of a sudden, rather than cut the price from $500,000 to, let's say, $475,000, where maybe the home values would be if they sold normally and not as a new build, what you might often see is a sales price of $500,000, but we're going to give you $25,000 in builder credits to buy down your interest rate to make it more affordable, because now all of a sudden that's being more comparable with other home sales around it. Sounds great because, hey, I'm getting this credit. And yes, you're technically getting what you could almost argue is like, hey, Evan, that's still worth like $475 because it's a credit back. Somewhat, but here's the deal. Here's the danger that buyers can run into when taking these very large credits. Is that all of a sudden, let's say you're using that credit where, again, $500,000 home and they're giving a 5% credit, so $25,000, and you take that builder credit and you use it to buy down your rate. There's two major issues here. Number one, we're going to look at if you had to turn around and sell it immediately. And then number two, is it really even worth it on your interest rate? So number one, if you took that seller credit and you bought it at $500,000, but then let's say we often work with a lot of military families that might get short-term orders to move real quick, or you have a job change or whatever, you have to sell the home. If you purchase that home still at $500,000 and you use that $25,000 to buy down your rate on the home, then all of a sudden, if you had to turn around and sell the home quickly, you might find out this home really isn't selling for $500. It might be closer to that $475 because that's what the general market needs. But our price was effectively propped up with this larger credit. So you can run into a crunch where all of a sudden, oh no, I bought this home, and you could be potentially underwater on your home because that large credit made it feel better at the beginning. But the reality is, if you can't offer that same $25,000 credit, your home's probably not selling for $500,000 in that scenario. It could be selling for $475,000. So you got to watch out for that. What we usually advise for clients is, hey, if you're taking a large credit on something, that still can be a good thing. Remember, they might be trying to move the property legitimately. The best thing you could do is you're working with a real estate agent, ideally an independent agent separate from the builder. You want to make sure they run you a good comparable analysis of nearby homes that are not new build homes, or they're new built homes that were for sale as resale homes, meaning that maybe it was built 2 or 3 years ago from the same builder in the same neighborhood, and now that seller moved and they have to sell the home. It gives you a better idea of what the real value of the homes are. Because when they're new builds and you're using appraisals of new builds, it can be dangerous because no one's actually put the home up for sale without the builder having the ability to adjust credits and stuff. While yes, sellers can adjust credits and whatnot, you don't have the same leeway sometimes as builders have. Because remember, builders, they could offer different incentives in the build to finish the house out a little different. They can usually offer quality financing deals by buying down rates, etc., because they'll oftentimes use the loan process as a loss leader, let's say, or really making it so it's a good loan term. But again, if you're turning around to sell the home quick, you can't necessarily offer that to buyers on your future home. So the biggest thing is to help make sure, if you're like, wow, this is a big credit, is this a good deal or not? Agent, hey, can you help me determine, are other homes around this that are not brand new builds? They weren't built new, or they're appraised off that, but they're true resale homes, meaning someone had already bought it. It was an older home, not a brand new build, or it was a brand new build, and now they tried to sell it a few years later. Are those values accurate or not for where we're at with this builder, with this large builder credit? Because you don't want to be underwater if you happen to short-term turn the home around. So that's one major danger concern about taking those large builder credits. Number two, where I mentioned, hey, just the analysis of it doesn't make sense. We've had clients that'll go, we have this massive seller credit or builder credit, and we want to put it towards points. And they're telling us that they can buy our rate down to, let's say, a rate that's 1 to 2 percentage points lower than the standard going rate. I always say, let's make sure we evaluate if those points make sense. We have some other good videos on this where if you want to look them up, it's just on how to evaluate finance points. Because sometimes when you pay down finance points, let's do a quick recap on that. One finance point equals 1% of the loan value, and it brings down your interest rate a certain amount. Sometimes folks get confused on finance points when you're paying money down. They're like, hey, I pay one finance point, my rate comes down 1%. Not the case. Interest rate and the cost of the points, two separate ball games. So if all of a sudden they're using this massive credit to buy your rate down, you need to look at what is the return I'm getting on those points, that money I'm spending to get that rate down. Because I always like to say you can't buy your rate down to zero unless you're going to pay for your whole mortgage up front and own it in cash. When you buy your rate down, there's diminishing returns to how much those points can bring your rate down. And so if you're getting, say, 5 percentage points in builder credits from a builder, or 6 or 7, and you're applying most or all of that to paying down points, most likely those last few finance points are bringing down your interest rate an incremental amount. And when you do what's called a payback period analysis, meaning you take the total cost of buying that rate down and divide in your monthly savings, I've seen 100, 150 month payback periods. That means it takes 10, 15 years for that pay down to even make sense, or those points to make sense. But boy, it sure makes that rate look better. That builder's offering me this killer rate. Remember, i.e., go back to the previous example of the danger of you buy down your rate all this way, and then if you go to sell and it's not valued at the same part, yeah, you got this great rate. That doesn't matter to your future buyer. There's a good chance they're not going to be able to assume that. There's very few scenarios where that can happen. So you might have just got stuck holding a home where you could potentially be underwater. Fantastic, you got a good rate, but you can't offer that necessarily to your future buyer. So you want to be careful with that. So you want to do that analysis on, hey, is this rate really that good when I do the point buyback analysis or not? If it's not, then sometimes what you can do or look at, because again, sometimes these builder credits can be legitimate. Can I take that money and use it for something else? Can I use it to enhance the property? If so, you want to make sure that those enhancements really increase the value of the home. So again, going back to the previous point, you're trying to sell, it'll work out okay. Or if, for example, you're using a VA loan, one very unique loan type where you could utilize some of those funds to pay off other debts. That could potentially help and work well for you. We got a good video on that. Just ask for it. We'll gladly get it to you. But that's another good thing to look at as well. But know that those large seller credits, you just want to be careful with them. We've even seen folks where we do that analysis for them and they have this massive set of credits and it's, hey, you know what? Rather than use them all up, let's just see if we can knock down the price. Now, I'll tell you, builders are very cautious about that one. Why? Previous point, the appraised value, right? They want to make sure those homes are appraising right up here so that even when demand increases or decreases, they're making sure they capitalize on the full sales price. Because that's really where they're trying to make the money. The sale of the home price makes all the difference in the world. If they start pulling back on that sales price, that's going to impact their margins on the build. So they're going to do everything they can with their incentives and utilizing mortgage and loans to make things look good to get you in there. The big example I like to use is kind of akinning it to cars and making a similarity deal to cars. Sometimes I like to ask folks, hey, how do you think a dealership, back, I say a few years ago, was common. Now it's a little less common, but they're still really low. How would they offer 0% financing for 5 years? How do they offer today 1% financing for 5 years when regular interest rates are 5, 6, 7, 8%? How do they do that? It's built into the price of the car. That's generally it. With homes, you got to think the same thing. If the interest rate sounds really good, you got to look back and go, well, where's that factored in? And you just got to do the analysis. Look at comparable sales. Look at what the payback period really is on if there's builder credits buying that down. Look at what that payback period really is and maybe shift those credits and how they're used. Hope this helps explain the danger of large credits. They can still be really good. Make that clear, but you got to be cautious and careful. Please feel free to reach out. We're happy to analyze that for you if you're in such a situation. I hope this helps explain it. My name's Evan Kaufman again. Take care.